Discover Boaz, the miraculous story of divine redemption that will transform your heart forever. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, the land of Israel lay under the shadow of famine, weaving a tapestry of despair that spread across towns like a thick fog. It was in this agonizing time that Ruth, a Moabite widow, made her way to Bethlehem with her mother-in-law, Naomi. Their journey was one fraught with uncertainty, leaving behind everything they had known. The dusty road whispered tales of sorrow as the echoes of past sorrows trailed after them, filled with the haunting memories of Naomi's husband and sons and Ruth's lost love. Upon their arrival in Bethlehem, the people cast sidelong glances, their whispers enfolding a story of loss and hardship, yet Ruth's heart was steadfast, clinging fiercely to Naomi. "Your people shall be my people, and your God my God," she vowed, a declaration birthed from brave loyalty amidst Ruth's own mourning. Determined to provide for Naomi, Ruth ventured into the fields, a bold act as she gleaned leftover grain, fulfilling the ancient command of the law to support the needy. Under the burning sun, her fingers danced across the golden stalks, filling her arms with the blessings of the land, while her spirit soared with love and devotion. One fateful day, the fields welcomed a new presence, Boaz, a man of wealth and reputation for kindness. With a stature that commanded respect, he noticed Ruth, the outsider, and his heart stirred with compassion. "Do not go to glean in another field," Boaz instructed, his voice warm and protective, a shelter amidst the turmoil of their lives. His kindness kindled a spark of hope within Ruth. Perhaps this town held promise for them, after all. As weeks turned into a harvest season, Naomi's heart, though burdened with grief, sensed the unfolding of a divine plan. Filled with wisdom, she encouraged Ruth to approach Boaz at the threshing floor during the night, a moment steeped in risk, yet filled with hope. "Go, my daughter," Naomi urged, her eyes twinkling with a flicker of anticipation. That night under the starlit sky, Ruth trembled as she approached Boaz, her heart echoing her deepest fears. "Spread your wings over your servant," she whispered, invoking a sacred tradition, the call for him to redeem her. The weight of her words hung in the cool night air, laden with both desperation and faith. Boaz, taken aback, saw beyond her request. He recognized the extraordinary loyalty embodied in her actions, a woman who had chosen love and family over the comfort of her former life. "Blessed are you, Ruth," he replied, his voice resonating with a promise of protection and hope. But first, Boaz would need to navigate the laws that bound them, a kinsman-redeemer's duty which stood precariously against societal expectations. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select All Notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As dawn broke over Bethlehem, the tale of redemption lingered in the air like a testament waiting to unfold. What obstacles remained before Boaz could fulfill his promise? Would the law prove a barrier? The vibrant colors of the new harvest blossomed redemptively, hinting at the transformative power of hope. In the anxious stillness, Ruth's heart beat in rhythm with the divine pulse of the unfolding narrative, one that would ripple through generations, shaping a legacy steeped in faith, love, and redemption yet to come. The sun rose with gentle warmth over Bethlehem, casting its golden rays upon the fields, illuminating the promise of a new day. Ruth, filled with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety, awaited Boaz's return to the threshing floor. As the morning dew evaporated, she clung fervently to the hope that her bold appeal would bear fruit. Boaz, having risen early, gathered his workers and prepared for a day of labor. His heart was full, but the weight of duty tugged at him. Before the sun climbed higher, he sought out the nearest kinsman, one who held the rightful claim to redeem Ruth and Naomi. "Come, friend," Boaz called, weaving through the throngs of men. "We have matters of great importance to discuss." The sun beat down as they sat at the city gate, the hub of commerce and judgment in Bethlehem. Boaz, known for his integrity, called upon 10 elders of the city to witness the proceedings. "My kinsman, a piece of land has come to Naomi's hand, and as her redeemer it is your right to buy it. Will you redeem it?" The kinsman, smelling the sweet taste of land, declared without hesitation, "I will redeem it." But Boaz, with wisdom and courage, revealed the deeper layers of fidelity intertwined with the land. "But wait. The day you acquire the field from Naomi, you must also take Ruth the Moabite as your wife, so that the name of the dead may not be cut off from his brother. Will you still redeem it?" A silence fell like a shroud, the weight of the truth enveloping the kinsman. "I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I impair my own inheritance. Redeem it for yourself. I cannot." The decision etched on his face was one of surrender, his selfishness unveiled before the watchers of Israel. With that declaration, Boaz's heart soared. "You are my witness, and all of you, me also," he proclaimed to the elders and townsfolk. "I have bought the land from Naomi, and Ruth the Moabite I take as my wife. Thus we shall carry on the name of Elimelech, and his family shall not fade into forgotten history." The elders and the people rejoiced. "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who built the house of Israel. May you act worthily in Ephrathah and be renowned in Bethlehem." As Boaz led Ruth into his home, the blessings poured forth like abundant rain. The joy of a new beginning washed over them, and in the quiet of their hearts they felt the intricate weavings of God's redemptive plan. Ruth, once an outsider, now entered into a covenant that would alter the course of history. Days turned into weeks, and the field behind them grew ripe for harvest. Ruth's hands became calloused, yet her spirit danced with joy, for within her womb was a promise unfolding, a sign of hope tethered to redemption's grandeur. Yet unbeknownst to them, the echoes of their love and loyalty already spanned beyond their immediate lives. Could it be that through their obedience and faithfulness, the lineage of kings would spring forth from the lineage of a Moabite woman? And as Boaz held Ruth close under the starlit canopy of divine sovereignty, he knew that their story was but a thread in the larger tapestry of God's love, woven into a destiny that would touch generations yet unborn. What births awaited in the cradle of their hope? The people whispered reverently, for God's hand was moving, preparing the fulfillment of promises wrapped in mystery and grace, beckoning hearts to witness the unfolding legacy of redemption. As the days of harvest grew long and the sun began to set on the fields of Bethlehem, the heart of Boaz swelled with both pride and humility. Each evening, as he returned from the fields, he would glance at Ruth, whose laughter rang sweet as she threshed grain, a diligent worker embracing her new life. He marveled at how the Lord had turned her bitterness into joy and her loss into abundance. The people of Bethlehem observed the deepening relationship between Boaz and Ruth. Their hearts kindled with hope, for they sensed that something extraordinary was unfolding, yet the entirety of God's plan lay shrouded in divine mystery. "The Lord be with them," they whispered amongst themselves, praising the hand of providence in their midst. One day, after an arduous day of toil, a weary Ruth approached Boaz, her face reflecting the strength of her spirit. "My lord," she began, her voice steady yet reverential, "may I ask for your blessing? As you have been a redeemer to me, may I be a comfort to you in your service." Boaz paused, struck by the earnestness of her plea. "My daughter, you have shown great loyalty. not only to Naomi but also to me. It is my honor that you would seek to honor me in this way. The Lord's reputation precedes you. I have heard of your kindness and virtue." With each word, the bond between them grew deeper, transcending the conventions of the world around them. Day by day, they worked side by side in the fields, and with each act of love and reverence exchanged, their hearts were knit tighter, embodying the essence of covenantal love. Yet the land was still filled with uncertainties, as the scornful whispers of the past pursued them like shadows across the harvest. "A Moabite woman has captured the heart of our esteemed kinsman," they would mutter. "What place does she hold among us?" Ruth felt the weight of their judgments, but in her heart she clung to the promise of belonging that Boaz represented. Then one evening, as twilight danced across the mezzanines of the sky, Naomi, filled with wisdom and concern, called Ruth into her presence. "My daughter, the time has come to seek security. It is not a small thing to wait for the harvest without some assurance for your future. I will guide you in seeking rest in the care of Boaz. Wash yourself, anoint yourself, and put on your best garment. Go down to the threshing floor." Ruth's heart thrilled with anticipation and trepidation as Naomi spoke these words. "What if I am rejected? What if he does not respond as you anticipate?" she pondered. Yet within her, hope glimmered like a flickering flame against the wind. That night, as Ruth made her way to the threshing floor under the cover of darkness, she felt the cool earth beneath her feet, whispering stories of old. She stood by the edges of the barn as Boaz lay down, for he was the protector, the redeemer. With her heart racing, Ruth gently uncovered his feet and laid down, poised for his response. As dawn approached, Boaz awoke to find her there, and a response stirred within him, admiration for her faith and courage. "Who are you?" he inquired, bewildered yet enchanted by her presence. "I am Ruth, your maidservant," she confessed boldly. "Spread your wings over your maidservant, for you are a redeemer." In that moment, the weight of their destinies collided with the divine plan woven throughout generations. Boaz gazed upon her with kindness and reverence. "The Lord bless you, my daughter. You have shown kindness anew. I will do all that you ask, but there are matters that must first be resolved in the sight of the elders." The dawn broke in hues of hope as Ruth returned home, the promise of redemption tangible in the air she breathed. Meanwhile, unknown to them, the intricate tapestry of God's design continued to unfold, each thread a testimony of faith, love, and divine purpose, leading toward a destiny that would echo through the ages. What awaited in the courts of justice and mercy? The thread of fate drew tighter, whispering of greater things to come, revealing the shadow of God's sovereign hand, preparing a lineage that would bring forth a king. As the sun rose gently over the fields of Bethlehem, casting a warm glow upon the earth, Ruth's heart soared with the promise of hope. She returned to Naomi, her spirit buoyed by Boaz's words, yet deeper questions lingered within her soul. What would the days ahead hold? She embraced the uncertainty, knowing that their lives had been intertwined by a divine purpose. Naomi, wise and discerning, perceived the joy on Ruth's face and inquired, "My daughter, what news do you bring?" With excitement bubbling in her voice, Ruth recounted the night on the threshing floor, the honor bestowed upon her, the promises spoken by Boaz. "And he has pledged to seek redemption for us, mother?" she concluded, her spirit dancing with anticipation. "Yes, praise be to the Lord," Naomi exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with faith. "It is well that you came to him, for our kinsman is not just a man of wealth, but a man of integrity. We have laid our cause before the Lord, now let us wait upon him." And so, in the days that followed, the women remained hopeful. Ruth continued to glean in the fields, the barley swaying in response to the wind, a reminder of the fruits of faith. Boaz, meanwhile, prepared to act. He assembled the elders of Bethlehem, for matters of redemption necessitated their witness. As the sun reached its zenith, Boaz stood among the elders at the city gate, where decisions were made and destinies sealed. With a heart filled with conviction, he addressed the gathered men. "Indeed, Naomi has returned to our land from Moab, and she seeks to sell the parcel of land that belonged to our brother Elimelech. As her closest kinsman, it is my duty to redeem it for her." Among the elders, murmurs arose, for it was a significant obligation. They knew the honor, yet they also understood the repercussions of such a commitment. "I will redeem it," another man declared, rising to take the mantle of responsibility. The air was heavy with the weight of expectation, and Boaz's heart quickened. "In doing so," Boaz continued, a steady determination in his tone, "you must also take Ruth, the Moabite, and raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance." The elders listened closely, for they knew this was more than land, but a call to embrace family and legacy. "I cannot redeem it," the other man replied, his voice wavering with the weight of the covenant. "For my own inheritance would be jeopardized. I relinquish my right to you." A sense of divine providence settled over the assembly as Boaz watched the man retreat. With joy and trembling, he turned to the elders. "You are witnesses today that I have bought from Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech, and Ruth is now my bride." The elders rejoiced, declaring blessings upon Boaz and Ruth. "May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, the two who built the house of Israel. May you prosper in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem." As they spoke these words, a sacred hush fell over the gathering, the presence of the Almighty evident in their midst. A tapestry of promises and prophecies began to weave together, the air alive with God's faithfulness echoing through their lives. In that moment, Ruth felt the divine hand of God at work, drawing her from her past into a future filled with promise. She clutched Boaz's hand tightly, astonishment washing over her like the evening sun dipping beneath the horizon. She, a Moabite woman, was now engulfed in the genealogy of God's chosen people. But what she didn't yet know was how the threads of her story would intersect with the legacy of Israel, and how God's plan reached far beyond their immediate hopes. For in the depths of his sovereign will, a kingdom awaited its king, and the echoes of redemption would reverberate through generations yet to come. And it came to pass that after the elders had uttered blessings over Boaz and Ruth, the sun began to set, casting hues of crimson and gold over the fields of Bethlehem. The laughter and joy at the city gate faded into whispers of gratitude as Ruth and Boaz made their way home, hand in hand, hearts united in divine purpose. Ruth felt a stirring within her soul, a blend of hope and trepidation. "What must I do now, Boaz?" she asked. Her gaze met his, searching for assurance. "Fear not, Ruth, for in this union we are not merely seeking redemption of land, but of family and future," Boaz replied, his voice steady and warm. "Together we shall build a legacy that honors the Lord and fulfills prophecy." As darkness enveloped the land, they reached the home that would now shelter their intertwined lives. The shadows of the evening were filled with expectancy, for Ruth knew this was the dawn of a new chapter, yet the details of their journey remained veiled in mystery. The following days brought the rhythm of daily life, but within the hearts of Ruth and Boaz there lingered the anticipation of the fruit of their union. Ruth fulfilled her duties with dedication, gathering the harvest and providing sustenance for their household, while Boaz led the men of the field with integrity, a true shepherd to his people. Their neighbors began to speak of them, marveling at Ruth's beauty and Boaz's generosity as the news spread through Bethlehem. In the quiet of the evening, Ruth sought the Lord in prayer, lifting her heart toward the heavens. "O Lord, how have I merited such favor to be included in this house? Let thy will be done." In that sacred stillness, she felt a whisper of peace, a confirmation that she had indeed entered into a covenant that was ordained by God himself. Then the day arrived when Ruth and Boaz celebrated their marriage, a festive gathering filled with joy and laughter. The women of Bethlehem rejoiced with Naomi by her side, and she declared, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you without a kinsman redeemer. May his name be famous in Israel." As the celebration continued, it became evident that God's plan was more than just the union of Ruth and Boaz. It was a divine orchestration that would extend to the generations to follow. With each blessing uttered, the thread of their story wove into the larger tapestry of Israel's history. As years unfolded, Ruth and Boaz were blessed with a son, Obed, whose arrival ushered in a wave of joy that echoed through their hearts. The women of the town gathered around Ruth, singing praises. "Naomi has a son." And in that moment, Ruth saw the fullness of God's promise manifest in her life, grace for her past and hope for the future. Naomi took the child in her arms and proclaimed, "This child shall be a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age, for he is born of your daughter-in-law, who loves you." The lines of despair that had once hollowed Naomi's heart began to fade, and the light of renewal dawned upon her. Yet as Ruth gazed down at her son in that sacred moment, she felt a stirring in her spirit, that God's purpose for their family was only beginning to unfold. Indeed, from Obed would come a lineage that would lead to the throne of David, and beyond him, a greater king awaited to fulfill all promises. And so it was that God's sovereign plan began to reveal itself, a divine thread intricately woven through the lives of those who dared to trust in him. For even in the quiet corners of life, when struggles seem too great, God's redemption is at hand, calling forth his purpose in miraculous ways, whispering of the eternity yet to unfold. And it came to pass, as the days turned to weeks, Ruth and Boaz nurtured their bond within the embrace of the Lord's promise. The sun rose daily over the fields, illuminating hearts and sowing blessings. Obed grew, cradled in affection, and his laughter was like music winding through the hills of Bethlehem. But one evening, as the stars twinkled brightly across the sky, a shadow fell upon the joy of their home. Ruth sensed a heaviness in her spirit, and she confided in Boaz. "I have heard whispers among the townsfolk, tales of challenges we may face. What will come of us, my husband?" Boaz, ever steadfast, gathered Ruth closer. "Ruth, our hope is anchored in the Lord. His ways are unfathomable, and his providence shall guide us." Yet even as he spoke, trepidation lingered in his heart, for he too could hear the murmurs of doubt that surrounded them. A short time later, a man from the city approached them, his heart filled with urgency. "Boaz, I bring troubling news. The famine that has touched our land strikes anew. Remember the words of Naomi, that there would be times of difficulty before the harvest." At these words, a deep silence fell upon Ruth and Boaz. The weight of the reminder echoed against their newfound bliss. Yet Ruth, standing firm in her conviction, lifted her eyes in prayer. "Lord, you have brought me to this place. Whatever lies ahead, I shall trust in your goodness." Over the coming days, the effects of the famine began to ripple through the household. With each sunset, the fields darkened under the weight of the drought, and the people of Bethlehem faced despair. Boaz gathered the men, offering them words of courage. "We shall labor with all our might, trusting that our God will provide. Take heart, for his mercies are new every morning." Yet in the quiet of the night, Ruth could not shake the feeling that they were part of a larger story, one that bent toward both heartache and hope. What was to come? She did not know, but in her spirit it stirred like the winds before a storm. In the midst of their trials, the women of the town rallied around Ruth. They spoke of her faithfulness and the strength she displayed. "For behold, Naomi's daughter-in-law is a woman of valor. She is a blessing among us." Indeed, Ruth felt buoyed by their words, but an ache within remained. She thought of her own people, living in despair. Would her journey of redemption touch them as well? Then, one day, a visitor from Moab arrived in Bethlehem, bringing news from Ruth's homeland. The elderly woman shared tales of her family, echoes of worship, and cries for help reaching the ears of their community. This was a call unto righteousness. "Ruth," said Boaz upon hearing her recite the tidings, "could it be that God stirs your heart for those who have yet to know the fullness of his mercy?" Ruth's eyes brightened as she understood there was a purpose beyond herself. "If the Lord wills, I shall return, and tell them of his faithfulness, of how in my brokenness he has redeemed my life." Boaz grasped her hands, filled with awe for the heart of this woman whom God had brought into his life. "Go, beloved, and may the Lord protect you upon this path. He has orchestrated this very moment for his glory." And as Ruth prepared for the journey back to her people, she felt the weight of the divine upon her shoulders. What more would God accomplish through their stories of redemption? The tapestry spread before them, as yet unseen, held colors that had yet to unfold. Here in the quiet of pulling at the threads, God's sovereign plan began to weave anew, hinting at a revealing that only he could fathom. The trials they faced might well be the prelude to a greater deliverance echoing into eternity. What surprises lingered in the heart of God, ready to break forth in his chosen season? And so it was that Ruth journeyed forth from Bethlehem, her heart filled with both dread and hope. With each step along the dusty path back to Moab, memories of her homeland flooded her mind. The laughter of her kin, the vibrant festivals, the call to worship that rang through the towns. Yet deep within her there echoed the conviction that she was not merely returning as one who had left. She was a vessel of God's mercy and purpose. As she entered the gates of her hometown, Ruth saw familiar faces, but they were marred by the weariness of the famine that hung heavy over the land. The echoes of joy that once filled Moab were replaced by murmurs of despair. "Who is this? Ruth, the Moabite?" the people whispered. Filled with courage, fueled by divine appointment, Ruth stood tall amidst her people. "Hear me, brethren, I come to share tidings of hope and restoration, for I have seen the hand of God. He has bestowed his grace upon me, and I am transformed." Her voice rang out, and some turned to listen, drawn by the authority behind her proclamation. She recounted the mercy she had found in Bethlehem, the faithful gleaning in the fields of Boaz, a kinsman who proved God's provision in the midst of trial. Her words painted a picture of a land of blessings, where the Lord rewarded those who seek him diligently. But not all were convinced. Some bridled at the thought that a Moabite could return with such a message. "What can you, a foreigner, convey to our broken people?" they retorted. Yet Ruth stood firm. "My journey is not merely my own. I have tasted of the Lord's goodness. The struggles we face are not the end. They are but a chapter in the great tapestry of his plan." As Ruth spoke, a woman stepped forward, her eyes filled with sorrow. "I am Naomi's friend. In her time of need, she had my loyalty, yet the famine has ravaged our hearts. Is the God of Israel truly with us still?" Ruth looked into her eyes, the flame of faith igniting within her. "Yes, he is faithful. I have returned not only to bear witness, but to challenge each of us. Let us turn our faces to him. Let us seek his mercy with all our hearts." The sun began to set behind the hills, casting a golden hue over the assembly. Ruth's words entered the hearts of many, and a murmuring arose among them. "Could it be?" whispered one. "Can the God of Naomi still redeem?" echoed another. Within this newfound hope, a desire started to blossom, a faint but brightening flame calling them back to worship, to prayer, to life. As days passed, Ruth's presence stirred the hearts of her people, and a hunger for restoration grew stronger. They began to gather, each sharing their burdens before the Lord, knowing he heard their cries. And Ruth, amidst them, became a beacon of faith, a reminder of God's presence in hard times and an embodiment of his redemptive grace. But one evening, as the moon ascended high and cast silver light across the land, a whisper rippled through the shadows. "The Lord has a plan far greater than you can see, Ruth," it seemed to say. A solemn stirring settled over her, a revelation lingering just beyond reach. What awaited her and her kin? Was this emerging faith the beginning of a divine unfolding? The heart of God, as vast as the heavens and rich in mercy, held secrets yet unspoken. The tapestry was fraying, but soon it would be woven anew. A powerful story of deliverance hidden within the struggles, awaiting revelation at the appointed time. What greater glory lay ahead, and how would it transform them all? As the days turned into weeks, Ruth's tale of restoration spread throughout Moab like wildflowers in spring. With each recounting of God's grace, the hearts of her people began to awaken from their slumber of despair. They gathered not only to listen, but also to share their burdens, lifting their voices in prayer where once silence had reigned. One fateful morning, a thirst for sustenance drove Ruth to the fields beyond the town. She had heard of Boaz, the wealthy kinsman, a man of honor and provision, who owned expanses of crops that flourished despite the famine. She felt the gentle pull of divine purpose urging her to glean in his fields. "Perhaps," she mused, "he will notice me, and I may find favor in his eyes." Clad in simplicity, she made her way to the sun-drenched fields, where the sound of rustling wheat promised sustenance both for body and soul. As she bent down to gather the grain left behind by the reapers, the heat of the sun bathed her in warmth, and her heart beat with anticipation of God's provision. Soon Boaz arrived from Bethlehem, and the eyes of those in the field turned toward him with reverence. He greeted his harvesters, his voice a melody of authority and kindness. But as his gaze traversed the rows, it fell upon Ruth, the Moabite, a stranger in their midst. "Who is this woman?" Boaz inquired, curiosity lighting his countenance. "She is the young woman who returned with Naomi," one of the reapers replied. "She has been steadfast in her gleaning, asking only for the scraps that remain." Intrigued, Boaz approached Ruth without hesitation. "Listen, my daughter," he spoke, his voice resonating with grace. "Do not go to glean in another field, nor wander from here. Stay close to my young women. Let them guide you where the harvest is abundant. I have commanded the servants to protect you." Ruth, astonished by his kindness, fell upon her face, bowing before him in profound humility. "Why have I found favor in your sight, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner?" she asked, her heart trembling with gratitude. Boaz replied, "I have heard of your devotion to Naomi, how you left your father and mother to come to a people you did not know. The Lord repay you for your work, and a full reward be given you by the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come for refuge." Tears brimmed in Ruth's eyes, and she retorted, "I am but a servant, unworthy of such grace." Yet, within her spirit, something began to stir. A sense of hope that perhaps this was just the beginning of a new chapter, a dawning redemption. By evening, her arms filled with grain, Ruth returned to Naomi, her heart buoyant. "Look, mother, the Lord has favored me. I gleaned in the fields of Boaz." Naomi's eyes sparkled with recognition. "Blessed be he of the Lord. He is our near kinsman, a redeemer. This is indeed a divine appointment." The echoes of her words washed over Ruth like rain, refreshing a parched land. As they sat together, sharing in the bounty, Naomi began to devise a plan, a strategy unfolding like the dawn. "My daughter, prepare yourself. There is yet a greater purpose in this intertwining of our lives." And as the stars emerged one by one in the vast night sky, Ruth sensed the mighty hand of God orchestrating a majestic symphony of redemption. Little did she know, just beyond the horizon lay a promise far greater, a covenant to be fulfilled through her willingness to embrace the unknown. For the Lord's plan was not merely to sustain their bodies, but to weave a legacy of faithfulness that would echo through generations. Could it be that Ruth, the Moabite, would one day be part of the lineage of the promised king? The question lingered in the air, hanging with the weight of divine mystery, awaiting revelation at the appointed time. As the dawn broke over the fields of Bethlehem, Ruth arose with a heart full of hope and determination. With her mind fixed upon the words of Naomi, she prepared herself for the day, knowing that God was at work, weaving redemptive threads into the fabric of her life. Naomi, filled with wisdom and foresight, had spoken words that resonated within Ruth's soul. The time has come for action. With her mind firmly set, Ruth donned her best garments, reflecting both her dignity and the humility of her heritage. She ventured to the field where the morning sun cast golden rays upon the ripening harvest, a testament to divine provision. As Ruth gleaned once more in the fields of Boaz, she was met with kindness and respect. The reapers began to leave her extra handfuls, as Boaz had instructed. There were whispers among them, speaking of her character, her faithfulness, and her unyielding spirit. Little did they know the significance of her presence among them as a Moabite bride embraced by the God of Israel. Meanwhile, Boaz observed Ruth from a distance, a sense of admiration swelling in his heart. He began to understand his role in this unfolding story. A kinsman redeemer, one who possessed the means to secure her future and restore her family's name. Yet, as he pondered, he also saw the hand of the Lord guiding him, prompting him to act according to righteousness. At day's end, after the day's labor, Boaz approached Ruth. "My daughter," he said with utmost gentleness, "you have not gone after young men, whether poor or rich. You have shown great loyalty, and it is evident that you seek refuge not just in these fields, but under the wings of God." Ruth's heart fluttered, feeling each word settle deeply within her spirit. "Thank you, my lord, for your kindness," she replied, her eyes cast down in reverence. "Though I am but a stranger, you have spoken such grace over me, bringing healing to my wounded heart." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the field, Boaz took a decisive step. "I am indeed your kinsman, and I shall not rest until I fulfill my duty to redeem you and your family. Stay close to my workers until the harvest is completed, and let the Lord's guidance weave our paths together." That night, Ruth hurried home to share the wondrous news with Naomi. "Mother, Boaz has declared himself our Redeemer," she exclaimed, her excitement spilling over. "He acknowledges our need, offering sanctuary and provision." Naomi's eyes shimmered with renewed hope. "This is indeed from the Lord, Ruth. Await his further words. There is much yet to come, for God's plan is unfolding before us." And thus, as the days continued to dance like the wheat in the fields, both Ruth and Naomi sensed that their lives were intertwined with a greater purpose, a purpose that reached beyond mere sustenance. The promise, whispered through generations, awaited its fulfillment. But little did they know, as the soul of their story began to intertwine with the hearts of many, a greater lineage was poised to emerge, a lineage that would capture the heart of the world and bring forth the Savior whose reign would never end. For in the quiet recesses of God's plan, the seeds of divine redemption were planted, waiting to blossom into the greatest story of all. What they could not yet comprehend, the heavens watched in anticipation of the sacred revelation on the horizon. And it came to pass that the threads of divine redemption, intricately woven through Ruth and Boaz's lives, began to manifest in the fullness of God's promise. As the seasons changed, so too did the hearts of those around them. From whispers of doubt to shouts of praise, the tides turned in Bethlehem, echoing the wisdom of old. Where there is faith, there is hope. One serene morning, Ruth, now a beloved wife, stood by their fields, her hands resting upon her burgeoning belly, a testament to God's gracious provision. The sun bathed the earth in a golden hue, a fitting reminder that the Lord's favor shone upon them. In the fleeting moments of solitude, she prayed, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, O Lord, for you have turned my mourning into joy and my emptiness into fullness." As the harvest drew near, Boaz, ever vigilant, continued his work amongst the fields, leading his men with honor and strength. Each day was a celebration of faith, as the news of their marriage radiated throughout Bethlehem, a buoyant ripple inspiring hope where once there was despair. The elders often gathered to speak of Boaz's integrity and Ruth's remarkable virtue, both of whom had defied cultural boundaries and positioned themselves in the lore of Israel's redemptive history. One evening, as shadows danced beneath the tree line, Naomi, filled with the fire of prophecy, approached Ruth, her voice laced with urgency. "Daughter, the time of fulfillment draws near. The God of Israel whispers that our lineage shall thrive, and through you shall come forth a new beginning." "What do you mean, Naomi?" Ruth asked, perplexity turning her brow. "Wait upon the Lord and his promises, for your son shall carry forth the name of Elimelech. His life shall bear witness to the covenant God made with our forefathers. Be expectant, for you are the key to a glorious story, a legacy that will resonate through time." Days turned into weeks, and the rhythms of life became a sweet melody, echoing with laughter and joy. As Ruth felt the life within her quicken, her spirit rejoiced, knowing she was a catalyst of the promise that spanned generations. Then one fateful night, amidst the chorus of crickets, Ruth went into labor. Boaz, filled with both excitement and anxiety, stood beside her, whispering prayers of strength and courage. "You are not alone, beloved. The God who brought us together shall sustain us." And just as dawn began to kiss the horizon, the cries of a newborn broke forth, filling the air with joy and gratitude. "A son has been born!" shouted the midwife, who cradled the child carefully in her arms. "Obed," Ruth breathed, tears of joy flowing down her cheeks. "His name shall forever reflect the loyalty and love that bind our families together." Naomi, brimming with pride, took the child and held him close, proclaiming, "Blessed be the Lord, for this child shall be a restorer of life and a nourisher of my old age." The townspeople rejoiced, witnessing God's hand of restoration weave through the tapestry of their lives, a symbol that hope, even in the darkest of valleys, would always emerge victorious. As the months flowed like rivers of grace, Obed grew strong under the watchful eyes of his parents and grandmother. His laughter intertwined with the fields, becoming not just a child of Ruth and Boaz, but the embodiment of God's faithfulness. Yet underneath it all, the threads of history glimmered with anticipation, for even Ruth and Boaz could not foresee the grand legacy that awaited them. The lineage that would lead to David, the shepherd king, and ultimately to the Messiah, the true Redeemer. In those quiet moments, when night cloaked Bethlehem in peace, Ruth often found herself gazing at the stars, pondering God's incredible designs. Each twinkling light felt like a promise, a reminder that the tapestry of their lives was merely a flicker in the vastness of his eternal plan. And thus, in the secretive corners of divine providence, the story of Ruth and Boaz became more than a tale of love. It paralleled God's unwavering redemption, revealing to all who would listen how he magnificently orchestrates every detail in accordance with his purpose. The legacy of Boaz, the kinsman redeemer, and Ruth, the Moabite bride, became a beacon of faith for generations to come, a powerful testament that love knows no boundaries and redemption is available to all who would seek it. For in this story, God's heart was unveiled, echoing through the ages, beckoning the world toward grace, mercy, and unyielding hope. Beloved friends, we invite you to reflect upon this profound truth. God is working even now to weave your story into his greater narrative. Trust in his redemption, for his promises hold true across eternity. If this story has touched your heart, do not miss the blessings still to come. Subscribe immediately to stay connected to God's Word and to share in this powerful journey of faith. Leave a like now to help spread God's message through the algorithm, and comment below with your reflections. Your voice matters as together we proclaim His goodness. Share this testimony instantly with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth, for you never know how your sharing may spark hope in their lives. This is the moment to help spread biblical truth. Don't wait even one more second. Thank you for being a part of this divine mission.